doing was so disgusting. So we don't even realize how disgusting.
Exactly, we're insensitive.
When we mavaza like Eretz Israel, or we mavaza the opportunities to coach for.
That's the main thing. You mavaza the opportunities of geula. We squandered them for silly reasons, for gashmius reasons, basically. Then we assume that nothing's happening. Coach Baruch hasn't lowered the boom yet. And then, because remember the question that's behind this whole Gula Barachamim thing, the whole, whole message, emanates out of one question: why is it that the Jewish people, as smart as they are, and as experienced as they are with anti-Semitism, always get cut at the end of an exile and pay a price for it? That's the driving question. That one question. There's two possibilities: either Kosh Baruch Hu springs it upon us, there was no one to know about it, and therefore he's mean to us, and he's taking advantage of the situation, which of course is ludicrous because all through Tanakh it's not like that. Kosh Baruch Hu, clearly doesn't work that way. Or
I missed the question.
Just very simply, why is it that we never leave exile on time? Why do we always get burned at the end of exile? That's really the question, right? Because there's two possibilities. Either it's consistently always happening. Either it's because that Hashem doesn't warn us, in which case we're innocent and He's just mean to us, or that He tells us and we don't pay attention. So it turns out it's the latter, right? And the question, is that if there's no prophets today, so how are we supposed to know? So the answer is through the events of history, by paying it by the big picture. Because Baruch Hu left in our possession enough information, enough sources, enough midrashim. It's amazing. For example, in shul very often they'll have a Devar Torah between Kabbalah Shabbos and Marif. Half an hour Devar Torah, and you get people go up. Even Balabati, right? And everyone knows you have to be good. You're gonna have to speak, a good shtickle piece of Torah that's interwoven, and it's amazing how intricate these things can be. And the person, without even looking at notes, constructs the whole thing. Obviously, works on it, but on advance, but gets out there and constructs this fantastic, Devar Torah that basically gives over halacha and shows you all the machloks and all the intricacies and why yes and why no and this thing. What about that? And finally comes up the halacha that you know what to do. And people are amazed at how well this guy gave over the information and how much he knew in his head and how complicated the picture actually is. When it comes to Jewish history, people take the exact opposite approach. There's a source over there. Who really cares? Right? What about that one? How do they both interact with each other? Do they even interact with each other? Did you think about it? Not really. Why should I? Right? What about this one over here and that one over there? What about this one? What about this question? What about that historical question? All these things together. What about the big picture? Bottom line. Right? That's what we're after, is the big picture. So, for example, right, there's a perfect lead into this medrash over here. You have a medrash that says the following thing, right? That Rabbi Bar Chana, read the medrash inside. Rabbi Bar Chana said, once I was going on a boat and saw a fish upon whose back grass was growing. Okay, unusual. We thought it was an island. We alighted, baked, and cooked upon it. When the back of the fish became hot, it turned over. And had the ship not been so near, we would have drowned. Simple medrash, right to the Gemara Basra, 73b, right? And it's a whole series of stories in the Gemara, basically. Is this story true? People are inclined to say no. It's more of a mashal. It's more of a medrash, more of a concept being given over. What's the concept being given over? So the Gra has a Pshat, and the Maharel has a Pshat, and different Pshatim, right? Here comes another nice little Pshat by Rabbeinu Yaakov, right? Who wrote, he was Yaakov ben Yaakov Moshe Lorberman of Lisa, most commonly known as the Baal Chalavas Das and Baal Nasivas, right? And he wrote something on the Gedata as well. So what did he write? Rabbi Bar Chana saw with the Ruach HaKodesh that at the end of days, the Jewish people will rule over a people. He says this medrash is an end of days medrash. There's no suffix over here. He's saying this medrash that Rabbi Bar Chana is giving over is an end of day, whenever it's going to be, today, tomorrow, 1,000 years from now. But whenever it happens, this is talking about then, an end of days medrash. So what is it talking about? That at the end of days, the Jewish people will rule over a people. When you think of the end of days, is that what comes to your mind? The Jewish people ruling over another people? What a bizarre thing to say. Say At the end of the days, when the Jewish people are on their land, the nation will come to go to war. That's all like in Tanakh, and that's all believable. That's all logical and follows from all of Jewish history that we know about. To start off by saying, at the end of the day, the Jewish people will rule over a people is a very bizarre claim to make. Yes, no, whatever, but why? What difference does it make? So he explains.
It sounds like we should be defending ourselves against the non-Slavic nations against us. That's what we should be saying, right?
Yeah, that's what it should be saying. We expect war. Right. We expect anti-Semitism. We expect that the nations come against us. We expect that. We don't expect to be ruling over another people. Not yet.
Power.
Yeah.
What are we doing with this?
Yeah. And that's quite a nevuah. That's a curious enough thing to say that it makes you believe he had Ruach HaKodesh to say a thing like that, right? And he says,
he qualified by saying this is the end of days.
Yeah.
And he's not saying like.
Well, that's going to be an important factor. We'll put them together. Okay. Says the Jewish people will assume that this people have no hope of ever overcoming them and will subjugate them. The Jewish people are going to assume, and this is really going on a limb over here. It's like really describing a reality that the time he's writing this back in the 1800s when the Ottoman Empire was controlling the whole Middle East basically, and the idea of even having a homeland was still a very distant reality, let alone controlling a people who we will think will have no way to come back at us at some point in time.
When did he write this?
When did he write this?
Yeah.
The early 1800s.
This
parish.
This is his parish on the Midrash.
Right, the Midrash in the Gemara.
His name is Loberbaum.
His name is he's known as Rabbeinu Yaakov. That's how he's called. But his full name was Yaakov ben Yaakov Moshe Lorberbaum of Lisa, 1760 to 1832.
It's about the time of the Gra.
It's overlaps with the time of the Gra. Yeah. So he says. Actually, just by the end of the Gra's life. The Gra died by 1790. So he must have known the last 30 years.
Was he a town of the Gra?
Not that I'm aware of, but I'm sure he must have made a point of going to see him. For sure.
Also knowing that people were moving to Eretz Yisrael at that time.
Well, there weren't too many people going at that time. The Gra was just getting things going at this point. But so that's what he writes, right? He says, when the people have suffered much, they will turn the plate over on its mouth. An expression that the Gemara uses by Eov. Means like to turn flip-flop the situation, right? And resist the Jewish people. And this is quite a scenario. It's like, to talk about this back in the 1800s, like really begs the question of where are you getting this from? And he says, if Mashiach is not close at hand, the Jewish people will drown from the many problems that will arise. That's what he says. That's the end of the Medrash. And how does it work? What's the nimshal? In other words, that the people who are the Jewish people are controlling correspond to the fish that they're cooking on top of, right? Because just like they're cooking on top of the fish, and they fear the fish is not going to have any, they think it's an island. They think they're completely safe doing their thing. Turning up the heat on this island, they think they're completely safe. No problem. The fish turns over. When the fish has had enough of this heat, the fish turns over and begins to flip up the whole situation. So where we were on top and feeling safe, now we're falling into the water and we're scrambling. Right? That corresponds to this people turning the situation over and making what we would have thought a safe situation into a dangerous one for us now. Right? Mashiach is compared to the boat. If the boat had not been ready, we would have drowned. If Mashiach is not close at hand, the Jewish people will drown. From the many problems, look, what's going on over here, right? Not from bows and arrows and missiles and weapons and all that. We're going to drown from the problems they're going to create for us. From the problems they're going to create from this whole scenario. Now, 20 years ago, what are we talking about? 100 years ago, we would have no idea what this is talking about. In our generation, in this type of history, undergoing, it's in 1987. Until 1987, I came here in 1982. And when I came here in 1982, I remember that the Arabs used to walk the streets of the old city where I was with fear. They worked for the Jews, they worked in the Makolet, and I remember watching the way that they were being treated, the taxes, the whole thing, and they took it in basically. Nobody ever felt or believed these people would ever be able to do anything but be Arabs working in the Jewish country. You don't like it? Leave. That's the way it was. I remember once talking to a person in the Makolet. Actually, I was living in Hanaf No, this wasn't semicolon, but I asked the guy, he was talking to the Arab worker in a very, very demeaning way. And I said to him, I said, why are you doing it? Even if you don't like him, why antagonize? Why? It's also Chil Hashem, right? It also counts as a Chil Hashem too. But certainly, why instigate and anger them and put them in a situation where they might want to harm a Jew one day? Couldn't understand. He just the chamorim, right? These are donkeys. He was so ingrained in his way of thinking, he could not comprehend dealing with his Arab worker as he would, let's say, with a Jewish worker. Couldn't comprehend, even if he didn't like, to do it. But just, for example, North America, because of all the lawsuits you can get into, even if you don't like someone who's not like you, you treat that work with respect because you have to. Otherwise, you lose your job or get into a legal case like that because you learn the rules. Here also, we're surrounded by 360 million people who are just like these guys we're mistreating, right? And as a result of that, we're putting ourselves in danger, as we now found out. Comes along 1987, and these people literally turn the plate over in its mouth. With an all-too-willing media, and an all-too-willing, world, basically. And even though, really, in essence, these guys are the ones who are trying to kill us, because even if we don't like them, we're still giving them work, giving them money, and all kinds of support, way beyond what's considered to be normal and useful for ourselves, right? But these guys go ahead, and they turn the thing around, and they literally pick up stones and throw it and become the David versus us becoming the Goliath. They make us into Goliath. We're the David, they're the Goliath, but they're able to flip-flop the situation, turn it over in its mouth, and we become the Goliath in the eyes of the world, and there's nothing we can do right anymore. All of a sudden, everything we do just to defend ourselves becomes an offensive act. Whereas they go ahead and they create false scenarios, and it goes down as being real in the media in the end. I mean, it's exactly what the Medrash is talking about. And what's going on? They can't win. They're not winning. Baruch Hashem, the agreements have fallen through. These guys have proven themselves over and over and over again. We're not partners for peace, but we're drowning. We're drowning in the problems that they're creating for us. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? We can't shake it off. We're constantly being battered, and this whole thing with these humanitarian boats that come in, and Turkey turns against us because of the situation, and the pressure from all around the world, and the ability of the leftists, and of course, the thing of all, the greatest of all is Gush Katif. Losing Gush Katif to terrorists. After all the work that was put in to build it up, and all the families that settled there, for what? These guys were heroes. These guys were taking Trumas and Meiser on food, even though they weren't mechuyev to take it, when people living in the land who had to take it weren't taking it, because they loved Eretz Yisrael. The chibur they had for Eretz Yisrael is legendary. And the beauty they brought to that part of the land, unbelievable. And all because of the problems that these people created that we're drowning in, turning the plate over in its mouth, we were forced to give that land away and suffer the consequences. Nothing good came out of it. Nothing. Only bad. Only bad. Because Mamelech, the world would say, we have now seen that if you do this type of thing, how you're going to lose out? If the world had at least said that, and therefore we will no longer pressure you to give away any more land until these people change completely, if the world had said that, and at least that would have come out of it in the end. We didn't even get that. They totally ignored it. It means nothing. Let's now talk about Yehuda and Shomron. Right? Now that you've given Gush Katif to Hamas and terrorists and people who are firing missiles at your backside the entire time, let's now talk about giving land away in Yehuda and Shomron. Nothing was gained whatsoever for the entire thing. That's called drowning. That's drowning in the problems that the people create. And we have to go back to the first part of the statement. Because there's been nothing historically like the situation today, and there's never going to be anything in the future that's like it, because it is what it is. It's already what it is. And Rabbi Barchana said when that happens, you can assume it's an end of days event. It's called an end of days event. This is one medrash. I just spent 20 minutes on one medrash and one parish. I could spend another 20 minutes on this medrash and parish. This is hugely important, this medrash. You have to know it. You have to know it, and you have to ask questions about it. And if you did, a person living in the diaspora should be asking the question, well, if this is an end of days scenario, and it's clearly Ruach HaKodesh, because how could he possibly have known this would come to be? There were no signs at the time. and it's an end-of-day scenario, what does it mean for me living in diaspora, in Chutz La'aretz? What does it mean for me even living in Israel? Should I be thinking about more seriously how I use my time, right? And more seriously about doing chesed, because for all I know, history is coming to an end. With the end of history comes the end of Bechira. With the end of Bechira comes the end of the chance to earn and lose, right? Schar in the world to come. It's like, take it seriously. And this medrash is like, it's like mist. It doesn't exist. People don't know about it. If they know about it, they don't think about it. If they don't think about it, it doesn't hit their heart. It doesn't take them. And this is just one medrash. We just begun. We just begun over. We haven't gone to the whole thing. This is like one. We just took a piece of stone and laid a cornerstone for the foundation of a house. One day there'll be stones everywhere, all over the place, and a huge structure. We just put down the cornerstone right now. But it's such an important cornerstone that's so indicative of what's becoming the rest of the story, that we're way more advanced in the Gula process than people think. And we're just drifting. And as we'll see later on, one of the later chapters of Hashem, right, that's unfortunately the story of the Jewish people. Now we'll get to, I don't want to say too much now, but that's Yonah.
But this is what you're talking about. This Midrash is dealing on a different level than someone coming up to a practical halacha. When a person is dealing, like you're saying, threshing out a practical halacha, no matter how many pilfuls they have going through, the halacha could be this way, and finally get to the halacha, the ma'aser, or the reason how they got to the halacha. There, they have something to hang their hat on. Here, this is all. Well, that's what's called. So that's why it's called speculation. This is speculation. We're speculating. We're speculating on something that was given to through a medrash, okay, and we have to now put this medrash into perspective. So it causes us to look at our situation, okay, right. to look deeply, take to heart, our situation. And that's something that you're addressing. This is no longer Pshat level. This is not Pshat.
Exactly.
This starts getting into, you've got to look at, start looking deeply into yourself.
It's like anything in life. The financial markets work on speculation to a large degree. So what you do, because money's so valuable, you don't want to lose it, so you build as much evidence as possible to support the speculation. You want to get, everybody in life takes a leap of faith. That's for sure. But there's leaps of faith you can take from 6 miles apart. And there's places where the mountains come so close together you can almost walk across them, right? The goal is to get to the point where you leap with the least amount of space between the two possibilities, right? And that's
to have the greatest probability of success of
exactly
hurdling those two mountains.
Exactly. So, for example, that's one source, right? Here's another source, very important source.
What's the ship? How does the ship work?
Because the ship represents Mashiach.
So how does it work into it now? Where is it?
So he says, if Mashiach is ready, if the Jewish people are ready for redemption, in other words, if the Intifada had broken out, and the Jewish people were already in a Geula state of mind, we got to go back to Israel. We realize the exiles come to an end. We have to think about how to get there, even if it will take me years to get there. But I'm already working myself towards it. And fulfilling the verse we saw before that Kiratzov Dechas of Neha, the Jewish people, they want her stones, cherish her dust. We're in that mode of thinking. So then HaKadosh Baruch Hu will save us from that situation. Mashiach will save us from that situation. Otherwise, we will drown. And let's say more succinctly, if we're in an end of days mode, when this end of day situation arrives, then we'll be able to move on to the next stage peacefully, because we're already there at that way of thinking that takes us across the threshold at the Yemos Mashiach. But if you're holding in an exile mentality where you're saying, no, I like where I am right now, and I don't see any reason to change my situation, and as far as I'm concerned, exile could last another 100 years for all I care at this point in time, and this thing happens, you'll be scrambling. Because you'll be at a sink. You're going to be at a. That's the bottom line. You'll be at a sink. This is a time-generated reality. Because Baruch Hu brought into Intifada what he did in 1987 because the Gula needed that. Just like he increased anti-Semitism in Russia in the end of the 1800s and early 1900s to force Jews out of their Russia, let me live in Russia mentality and move someplace else instead. The same way what's going on in France right now. the elections are being driven not because people are just becoming more left. Because Baruch is making them more left, so they'll vote more left. So Jews will say, we have to get out of this place, right? 5,000 people attend an aliyah, a symposium or whatever it is, which is a huge amount of people for France, because people are saying maybe it's time to go after all. And it'll happen in America too. It'll happen all over the place.
So people who made aliyah during these years probably get tremendous schar.
Absolutely, not just tremendous schar, but they're in sync. Right. They're in sync with the master plan for creation. Right, exactly. And that's where the safety is. Safety for the Jew is defined by being where God wants you to be when He wants you to be there. Not by how far you can put yourself in the conflict.
So according to what you say, that's an Amalek event.
Which one?
It's an Amalek event. If the opportunity is there.
Well, it is in a sense because
you got to follow the paradigm now.
No.
Yeah.
You'll see there's different aspects here. It's more intricate than that. Amalek specifically comes because he comes in anticipation. I mean, in a sense, you're right, because of the fact that after 40 years, he woke up and realized this place is much firmer than he thought it would be in the end. This place began as a secular country, with secular mandate to become a totally secular place. What happened instead is it ended up being much more religious, much more traditional, and growing in that direction, right? So he woke up all of a sudden and said, "Oh, put the brakes on." Intifada was definitely, an Amaleki thing as much as he put the brakes on the Gula process.